Cupra or Cupra, I don't know. But what matters is this is a very windy day and there's lots of flowers being sprinkled over the car. This, as you can probably tell from the title of the video, is the Born. It's a bit of a weird name, but it is basically Cupra's first fully electric model. It's based on Volkswagen Group's MEB platform, shared with the Volkswagen ID.3. In Australia, the Cupra brand, I'm just going to call it Cupra by the way, only sells performance models or performance-inspired models. So they're kind of like hot hatches and hot little SUVs. It's a spin-off from the Seat brand, which is owned by Volkswagen Group. Whereas now I'm hearing that they're going to get rid of the Seat brand and just stick with the Cupra performance-inspired brand. The interesting part about this vehicle though is that it's rear-wheel drive and it's actually launched in Australia before the Volkswagen ID.3, which is quite strange. You'd think the mothership would launch its product first. But it looks pretty good. It's got this kind of weird snouty nose on it, and then it's got this huge windscreen, very aerodynamic, helping with range and efficiency. I really like the bronze detailing that Cupra has gone for. It's kind of like a stovepipe, grungy sort of theme, and you'll see it pretty much everywhere. You've got some details on the wheels there, and there's some more bronzy highlights inside. The MEB platform has been designed from the get-go as a fully electric platform, which means it's very space efficient. So there's no wasted space in terms of a transmission tunnel running through the middle here, although there is a chunky center console. Now, one of the annoying things about a lot of electric vehicles, for me anyway, is there is no starting or turning off sequence. You just basically get in and it starts already, so this is already started up. If I put my foot on the brake, it fully starts up even more kind of thing. All I need to do is twist the unusual gear lever here into D or reverse, and then there's park on the side there, and away you go. And then to turn the car off, I just get out and it just turns off. So I can shut the door and hit the lock button, walk away, that's it, it's done. I find this a little bit annoying because I'm always getting in and out of the car and I've still got the wife or the kids in the car running into the shops or something like that. So I want to leave the vehicle running, keep the aircon going, but as soon as I get off the seat, it shuts itself down. I know some EVs you can go into the touchscreen here and configure different settings and things to keep the aircon running. I can't seem to find anything like that with this specific model. You can schedule the climate control in this, which is good, but it's not quite the same. I'd rather just be in control of turning the car on and off. And the weird thing is, this still does actually have a start button on the side there. So what's the point of having the start button if it's going to decide when it wants to start and turn off? In a conventional combustion vehicle, I can just get out and everything will stay on. I can turn the lights on manually and they'll stay on or turn off. This I just find annoying when it's trying to take over control and decide what I want. I'd rather have more control. Other than that though, I do really like this interior. It's got a nice sort of, well, it's a bit unusual, but dark blue trim with that bronzy detail. And then a very futuristic and sculpted dashboard here with this panel that sort of sticks out and sits on its own. And you've got your drive buttons on the steering wheel, which look very cool. And then in the back, you've got a completely flat floor, helping to maximize legroom. Something's beeping at me now. Ignition switched on. So what did I do then? I don't remember doing anything different. Now it wants to turn off. Anyway, I could be doing something wrong, but I still find it annoying. Like if you just want to turn the vehicle on manually, I know that it's on because I turned it on. Whereas this, it's just a bit complex and needlessly complex. Anyway, you've got plenty of room in the back here, more room than you would have in any sort of hot hatch, just because of that lack of a transmission tunnel running through the middle there. Flat floor makes it feel more spacious as well. You've actually got heaps of headroom too. This ceiling, it's quite a sort of tall and upright vehicle. It doesn't feel like that on the road though. It doesn't feel like top heavy or anything like that. It's just the way they've designed it is quite clever in that it maximizes space completely. There are no climate vents in the back, unfortunately, but you do have twin USB-C ports down there. Most of the trim is pretty good, but yeah, it's a bit of, at least it's textured, but it is just hard plastic. A lot of the areas, even lower down here, and yeah, that's a little bit cheap in my opinion. They probably could add some material along there, a bit like on the front door. You've got that little strip running through where the armrest is, whereas this just has plastic. So they've saved some, or they've cut some costs there. In the back, you've got quite a large boot. Again, for this style of vehicle, I've got a baby seat stacked up there, but you do have some storage underneath. No, you don't. And then under the bonnet, you've just got bits and pieces for the steering and the accessories battery there, coolant. But yeah, no extra storage under the bonnet, unfortunately. Underneath it all is a 77 kilowatt hour battery, which is pretty big for a vehicle of this size. And it sends power or energy to a rear mounted electric motor producing 170 kilowatts and 310 Newton meters. Just let that sink in for a second. 170 kilowatts, which is about the same as a Golf GTI, going to the rear wheels with 310 Newton meters. 310 Newton meters isn't that strong. Some of the 2-litre turbos that are out at the moment produce 400 Newton meters, so 310 isn't that great, but 170 is pretty good. Being rear-wheel drive though is very interesting. And as you can see, the wheels are pushed right out into the far corners of the vehicle, so there's no or hardly any overhang there, which is dynamically the best scenario you can have. If you think of a Formula 1 car or something like that, the wheels are as far out as possible into the corners. That helps with handling, it helps with agility, it helps with even ride comfort and balance, because it's not like a little pogo stick jumping around. It's got the wheels further out as possible to help with bracing. It does have pretty narrow tyres, 215 50s on 19-inch wheels. 215s is quite small for a big heavy vehicle, which I'll get to in a second. They're eco-focused tyres, Eco Contact 6 Continentals. So they're not a crazy high-performance tyre, they're more about efficiency, and that narrow width definitely tells me that too, so it can slice through the air a bit better, but it doesn't seem to hurt the sporty feel from behind the wheel. So we'll go for a drive in a second on a nice winding road, and I'll see how it goes. I'll give it a bit of a push too and see if we can get that rear-wheel drive system into action. I don't think it's going to drift or anything like that, because the biggest downside is the weight. So it weighs 1,927 kilograms. That's very heavy for a vehicle of this size. I know it's bigger than a Golf GTI, but yeah, a Golf GTI is 1,500 kilograms or something like that. So an extra 500 kilograms just because it's electric. The first thing I do when I get in the car is turn the lane keep assist off, which is very easy to do just with this button up here. It's just got your quick options there. It's like having a phone, you know, when you swipe down from the top and it's got your sort of main settings. That's awesome that that's there. It's better than digging into the screen and you know, having to dive through all these menus just to turn something off. Although some vehicles have a button on the steering wheel, which is just as easy. You do have a number of driving modes to choose from using this button down here on the steering wheel. You've got performance, which seems to bring in a bit more brake regen. So you'll see this little gauge here. When it goes into the green, it means it's using brake regen to recharge the batteries and slow down the car. And when you apply power, it goes into the blue section. In the performance mode, that's got the strongest regen, I feel. Cupra mode is more of a performance set or high performance setting, and the brake regen isn't quite as strong. You've also got an individual setting, so you can configure your own situation, and you've got range for optimum efficiency, and then the standard sort of default comfort mode. I'm finding there isn't much brake regen at all in comfort mode. It'll actually coast for ages. So I've just taken my foot off the accelerator, move the keys out of the way, and it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling, which is another way of doing it, because, you know, brake regen means that I would be slowing down now, whereas with this sort of setup, I just, you know, hit the throttle just a little bit and then it just coasts for ages. So that's quite efficient too. I remember a Porsche engineer saying something in the effect of that brake regen isn't actually that good because you slow down, which means you eventually have to pick up that speed again, which, you know, there is some truth to that. Depends on where you're driving and in your current conditions. Out on a nice winding road like this, in Cupra mode, it feels very sporty. It feels like a hot hatch, and you can feel that drive being sent to the rear wheels as well. I'm not sure if you could power slide this thing, but yeah, you can definitely feel it just pushing from the rear as you go around the corner. You can apply a bit of power just before the apex and get that rear wheel drive feeling. I am finding it a little bit bouncy, the suspension. It doesn't feel as tied down as I'd like, especially the front end. It sort of just bobbles up and down. But it is very comfortable. So this is a pretty demanding road. The surface is very coarse and it's got a lot of bumps in it, a few off camber turns and things. So it's definitely a challenging road. I like taking cars down this road because of that reason. And it sort of uncovers any potential flaws in vehicles. This is driving very nicely. It feels good to drive. If I just pushed it much harder, it would just, yeah, I think that weight would really come into play. This isn't the hot hatch version either. This is not the performance model. There is a higher performance version coming. So I'd anticipate that would have tighter suspension for this sort of driving. Again, though, it does feel enjoyable. Like I like driving down this road in this car. It's not uncomfortable or, you know, it seems like it's out of its comfort zone. It does feel like it wants to be here. The steering feels nice. It turns in nicely and it's absorbing these bumps, as I said. So it's definitely doing well. I'm just not 100% confident in the suspension. Like if I come around a corner and I hit a bump, is it going to, you know, give me a little bit less traction for that split second because it is a bit soft or softer. So I've just put it in the ESC Sport mode, which gives me some slip. So you've got just two different options, on or ESC Sport. Yeah, it does handle really nicely. It's definitely got a good foundation there. It feels solid, it feels rigid and enjoyable. There's no fake sounds coming through, which is kind of nice. Sometimes you get a bit sick of those sounds, especially, you know, they're not engine sounds, so don't bother trying to replicate something that you're not, I guess, in some ways. Yeah, it's a fun car. Like, you could take this for a nice drive on a Sunday morning, just for the sake of it. It's got good response, obviously, being electric, but it's not super responsive like some other electric models that I've driven. It's more of a traditional throttle calibration, where if you're in a hot hatch, you know, you want some power, then you give it some power. You know, it's not just very sensitive on the foot. You've got to push the throttle a little bit, but it's still there. It's, if you want that, you know, 50% throttle, push 50% and it gives you 50% straight away. Overall, this is a great little car. It's very well packaged. It's got a lot of features and things. The only thing I don't like are these little touch buttons on the steering wheel. You accidentally touch them and they trigger, and the volume, you can sort of swipe it but not really push it. It's kind of a bit weird. But other than that, I think this is a great all-rounder. I'll be looking forward to the hot hatch version, the VZ version, to see how that handles. It'll be a bit tighter and it's got a bit more power, so that'll be a bit more exciting. So this is not the full exciting model, so you shouldn't probably expect full excitement, but as it is, yeah, it's a great all-rounder. The range is really good as well. I've found that it's pretty accurate when you're driving along. Like if I drive 80 kilometers, the range will drop about 80 kilometers, whereas some cars, you know, you drive 80 kilometers and the range is dropped by 150 or something. This seems pretty accurate. You can read our full review on the website, drivingenthusiast.com.au, for more information. Thanks for watching.